Good evening. Welcome to Mix with a Newb, episode 10. Tonight we're going to cover stereo width and automation. Welcome to episode 10. It's 10 episodes in. I feel great. I feel like I've really been pushing to get these episodes out. Before we begin mixing, I just want to mention something. I feel like injecting just a tiny personal bit of myself into the beginning of the video just to make it interesting so people want to come back and keep watching. If you're wondering about this, I've done a couple videos wearing the headband, wearing the bandana. It's not for the video specifically. I'm not trying to give myself a signature look or anything like that. I just took a shower a few minutes ago because I had gym earlier. I sweat a lot. I'm a sweaty guy. So I put these on. I put one on for the gym. I sweat through it. It keeps it from running in my eyes. I come home. I take a shower. And usually if I'm sweaty and then I shower, I'll still have, like, the wetness makes my scalp like sweat. So I'll throw one of these on to keep the liquid out of my eyes. It just feels good to be up there. It's nice and dry. And I do like the way I look with it on. You know, it gives me a kind of like a rock star look, or I don't know, Karate Kid or Willie Nelson. I mean, there's so many iconic figures out there that just wear a bandana up top. So it's cool in its own way, whatever. But I'm not putting on airs. I'm not trying to just throw these on to wear it in the tutorial. I actually have a reason for wearing it. In a couple of the videos, I've worn it after the gym, and you can see that it's wet. But right now it's not wet. My scalp stopped sweating, which is nice. But sometimes, like, even before, I don't wear one to work, but I'll be going to work and my scalp will be sweating and it'll go into my eyes. So anyway, that's the personal section. Let's move on to the mixing. All right, so we're still working on Digging Holes by my band Greenwire. We're getting closer to being done. One of the things I wanted to talk about as a mixing concept was your stereo width. We touched on this briefly in some of the other episodes. Stereo width is when you have two speakers, okay? And you have to think about this in terms of having two ears, okay? When we hear a noise coming from us, from a natural source, we can tell, our brain interprets the difference between the two ears. Even though it's only, yay far apart, our brain is very good at determining how far the thing is, or if it's moving, or there's so many things we pick up just because we have two input sources of our ears. There's a whole science to it. And so in music, we also take advantage of a two-speaker source. Your car has two sides. Most cell phones now, the higher end ones, have two small speakers inside. Even laptops. Most of us are not listening to things on a mono source. If you have one earbud in, or you're like me where you have one out so that you're not over talking, then you're getting just one side of it, which is not really a true mono. A mono signal is just both sources are mirrored. They're exactly the same. But in a traditional recording, we have stereo width. We have a depth of field between the two. And so in general, what you want to do is you want to have down the middle, and this is stuff I've learned from just reading, and again, I'll cite Mixer Man. I know I've probably beaten it to death. I've mentioned it so many times, but if you want a great place to read about this kind of stuff, like from an actual expert, Mixer Man, The Art of, and then put in recording or mixing or producing. There's a series of books he writes, and he talks about this idea of stereo width. You want your kind of lower elements down the center. You want your kick drum, your bass guitar, your snare for the most part, and your vocals. Although I have heard more and more about vocals kind of dancing around between the two sides for effect. In general, I don't mix the vocals wide left or right. What I do mix wide left and right are cymbals. So the ambient bus here, you can see I've got the panning here. This panning is what relates to what I'm talking about. So if you talk about pan, think of it as like panorama right? Pan means across. So if you're panning the signal hard right, that means it's only coming out of the right speaker. If you pan it hard left, it's only coming out of the left. If it's dead center at 0, it's equally out of both. And then wherever you put it in between those, adjust accordingly. 70% out of one side, 30% out of the other. So you can see that I hard pan these. And in a separate video, I explained that I no longer pan 100% on anything because it really creates this kind of jarring, like when you first start out, pan things hard left and right. Go ahead when you're early on in learning and get your ear used to hearing like something extreme on both sides. And what you'll find after a while is that it's really too much. So with things like cymbals, I go 90%. So you can see here the hat and tom channels, I'm going hard left 90%. And the room mic, I'm going right. Let's listen to it briefly. So I hope that whatever you're listening on right now, your phone or your laptop, can give you an idea that the two are slightly different. I'm hearing more snare on the right side. So that kind of corresponds to standing in front of a drum kit, and the snare might be, a little bit off to your right, snare and hi-hat. And so also guitar, I pan now. As I explained in an earlier video, I used to go hard right and left with these, and I kind of feel like it creates like a sort of phase, maybe not like a true phase, but sort of like a mental phase issue where you're hearing the amp tone on one side and the direct on the other, and it gives you this just like unsettling, like it's like the song's not whole, the song is like weird, So now I just put these left and right 60%. All right, so what I want to do just briefly so you can hear it is I'm going to reset these, particularly on the guitar, back to center. I have the vocals muted here because at this point in the mix, I want to approach having the instrument portion of it completely done and ready, and then put the vocals on top. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play with the vocals muted, and we're going to listen to just the instrument portion, guitar, bass, and drums. And then, so pay attention to the way the guitar sounds on your device. And again, if you have earbuds and you just have one in, this might be a completely useless thing for you, and I apologize about that. If you can pop in both earbuds, this will be more useful. And if you look at the label of them, like if you look at these headphones, they're clearly labeled L and R. So that would correspond to the changes that I'm going to make in the panning. So if I say, okay, I'm going to go hard left with the guitar, then it'll actually go to your left ear and it'll all make sense. And again, if you're on like a cell phone, if you're on a source that's mono, I apologize. This won't make any sense at all. The signal, I mean, maybe if I pan hard left or something, it'll disappear. I'm not really sure, but this is not for you if you're on a mono source. And I'm really sorry about that. I think most sources now are stereo, so this should work. All right, so let's hit play. Oh, I have the ambient bus. All right, so the guitar is straight down the center. You might say, oh, that's not bad. Why not leave it there? Right? You can. You certainly can. And the difference between these two gives it a little bit difference in texture. But let's pan all the way left. And then all the way right. Now I'm going to set it to where I normally like to have it, which is 60 on each side. Or, well, I vary it up. I mix it up a little. I go sometimes 75. It really varies. I just try to, at the end, I try to get it like pleasing to my ear. And I've gone, as much as 75 or as low as 60%. Depends on the mix. So now I'm going to solo this. Now what I want you to notice here, oh, what is this? Oh, that is so weird. Guitar amp 1 has no, oh, that's for this final part. Okay, so Oh man, Newb moment number 1. Here we go. I love when I run into these because this is a teachable moment to myself and hopefully to you. I was making the panning change on this guitar amp 1, and there's nothing in this lane all the way until I believe this is the breakdown. Yeah, so I was panning, you know. So that whole thing I just did a few seconds ago was totally pointless because I was affecting this channel. So there we go, Newb moment. What I'm going to do is I'm going to expand these so I know which ones I'm actually messing with. And actually, let's highlight them too. All right, so again, I'm going to pan hard left and then hard right, and you'll see the effect in you'll hear the effect in your ears. If this is something you're not familiar with at all, this is a good sort of, you know, introduction to what the stereo field, what kind of power it can have. I apologize if I was talking too loudly there. I had both earphones on there. All right, so I'm gonna hit play. Let's put it back to where we were. Hard left, hard right. All right, now I'm gonna selectively mute these. Oops. Just so I'm gonna put it back to center, so you get an idea of the difference in the tone. See, that one's like more subdued. That's more. In fact, I think our signal. This is a good chance for us to use the mixer as well. Let's hit Control M, or actually, is it Alt M? No, that mutes it. I thought it was Control M for mixer. Let's do View. Where's my mixer? It is Control M. So I guess it has to be. That's weird. I guess if I have something highlighted, it doesn't work. Control M. Come on. Reaper says it should work. Oh man. Newb moment number 2, not being able to open mixer. Control M. Oop, was I hitting Control N? No. Alright, just go to View, Mixer. Oh my god. Control M. That's weird. Alright, what I want to look at, it sounds like, so just going through these exercises for myself, this is good because the signal on this looks like they're about roughly the same, but they're not. One is a little quieter than the other, and we could use our audio statistics, which we learned back in episode 2, I believe, but we could also just visually look at the mixer and figure this out real quick. All right, so, and this is the first time I've actually pulled the mixer up and we're going to use it, so this will be good to give you an example of how you can use the mixer to do. This is sort of like some diagnostic or forensic work here. All right, so I'm going to drag this bigger. And we're watching these two channels right here, right? Let's make sure I can avoid them. Nope. Again, I did almost the exact same thing. Here and here. All right, there they are. See how they're highlighted? Okay. Oops. All right, now they're both down the center. Okay, so we do have a little bit of these. We have a difference in signal, so we have to fix this before we. Okay, see, I wish that line would have stuck there, but that's where the audio statistics could really come in handy. It looks like the amp one is quieter by, it's hard to say, it's maybe half a dB. So let's raise this by half a dB. We haven't done that yet, so that's good. So 0.7, we're going to actually go to like 9.3. Right there's 9.25. Okay, look, see, they're closer now. This one could actually go a little bit higher, so let's just put it right in there. Yeah, still, well, that's about right. Okay, so I'm going to drag this one down. Let's go to 8. Remember, I'm going to need to do this to the other two tracks too, so that they're the same. Because, yeah, you don't want to. If you make these same changes, you want to affect these other ones the same way. So we'll set the one to 9, exactly 9, or 9.3. Where are you? Ooh, negative 9.3. Or negative, there we go. And this one's at 8.42, which I think I meant to set it to 8.5. We'll just go to 8.5. And then we probably want to look at a section with this one too, just to check it. So this is interesting. I meant to start talking about the stereo field, and I discovered, hey, we have a disparity. We're not at parity with these two signals. Okay, so all right, so that's a perfect example when you need to mix according to the part. These two signals are vastly different. Let's check here too. Yeah, see, this side, the amp is much louder. I don't know if that's true. I guess that's probably true in both takes. Let's see here. Right, those are equalized now. All right, you know what? We'll adjust these further down. Maybe that'll be the next tutorial. For now, let's get back to the stereo portion, which is the whole point of this tutorial, because I don't want to get too far off track here. All right, so now that we've leveled them out, this will be a good example for your ear to hear. I'm going to go from center, and I'm going to put one out to the right and one out to the left, and just slowly enough so that as you're listening, you'll get an idea of how, with two different, because it's an amp through a mic, and it's a direct injection from an XLR cable. So they're two different sources of the exact same amp. And because they vary, just because they're different, I mean, one is distorted. They're both distorted, but one comes through the amp cab, through the resonating body of the amplifier, and into a mic, and one comes directly through a cable. They vary, and their signals are different. So by panning them out, now if you had the exact same signal left and right side by side, and you pan them out, nothing would happen. It would just, you're duplicate, they have to vary some way. And if you did have two identical signals, you could delay one or affect one somehow slightly, even using EQ. And once you pan them out, then you're going to start to have a difference in the stereo field. But because we have a mic'd cab, again, if you picture an amp, the cab is like the square portion of it that the speaker sits in that creates a resonating sound when you play through it. The direct injection, the XLR cable, does not have that characteristic. It's just a clean signal from the amplifier portion. So anyway, I'm going to go from center, and I'm going to start putting these out left and right, and you'll start to hear. So the first thing, I'm going to go like 30% on to the right. So this would be like an example of like a shallow pan. And I'm already starting to hear it, and you should too. I went too far with that. Alright, so you should hear the difference already. Let's go from there. I'll reset it back to 0. You can hear that shift. Let's do the extreme. Let's go 100% right and 100% left. Okay, interesting, right? I'm not getting anything in the right. Hold on. Okay, this is disturbing because oh yeah, okay. I still have signal in the right. It's weird. It just completely drops out as far as volume. So again, I'm not going to do 100%. I think I'm going to like about 60% now. 100% is just too extreme because if you noticed, I'm not sure if it happened in your source on the other end. I can't say for sure, but the right signal almost cancels out. It's really strange. And that makes me wonder if I have a phase issue. So to check that, we're going to flip the phase right here. Oops. Okay, we had them both selected, so it's flipped both. makes me wonder if I do have some phase going on. It's quite possible. So just watch the changes as I'm going. I'm going to go out to about 60%, which is what I believe I'm going to leave it after the mix. Now I'm going to toggle mono on. I don't believe there's actually a phase issue. It's the way my ears are interpreting it. I can talk, I swear. All right, so that's good. I'm going to leave those there for now. And again, actually, did we do that with the mix? I'm going to do it in the mix for you one more time in case you didn't get the full effect. I think you probably did, but I'm going to go hard right, hard left. Now, I hope you can hear what I'm talking about, how this full panning is just a little too jarring. It almost, in a way, it like makes the guitar disappear or something. Again, that might be a phase thing. I can't tell for sure. I'm not enough of an expert to know. I'm not enough of a even approaching intermediate to know. An expert would know. They don't sound out of phase, and I think because the sources were gathered, correctly, one from a mic and one from a DI, I don't believe that I do have a phase issue. I mean, I could be completely wrong. Well, let's zoom in and look. We're going to do a little forensic sniffing around here. So maybe I'm going to change the title of this to Phase, Exploring Phase and Width. All right, so let's look at the very beginning of the waveform here, and let's find, okay, we're going to collapse the mixer now, make it small again. All right, so here's the waveform of the guitar. Let me take this crossfade off. We'll talk about crossfades in another episode. All right, let's take my snapping off. Yeah, I think I'm good. Well, actually, that might be, wow. Okay, so this might, there's some phase there. I believe there's some phase. If you look at, so I'm looking at this peak on the bottom one, and I'm looking at this trough on the top one, and they almost coincide. So these might be out of phase. It's really hard to tell. I mean, I guess because my ears perk up and go, hey, the signal gets like weak when you go far left and far right. That means there probably is a phase issue. So this is important. This is a really critical thing for beginners. And again, I'm such a beginner myself, self-proclaimed noob, that I don't know for sure. I'd have to actually get someone else's consultation to go, hey, I think there's a phase issue here. My ears are telling me so. I check the waveform. Is this truly a phase issue? And they would look and do the same thing and go, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Or no, not really. So I'm going to flip the phase on this. And again, it's just this little button with the line. It's a circle with a line through it. If you flip both phases, you're canceling out the flipping of the phase. You want to do one or the other, okay? Yeah, that sounds a heck of a lot better. So in fact, that may have been a phase issue that I discovered. So most likely I'll change the topic of this to phase, and instead of automation, because we haven't touched on that at all, we'll talk about phase and stereo width, okay? So the same thing, I'm probably going to want to go ahead and flip the phase on the rest of these. And maybe if you are experienced enough, if you're watching my videos and you have more experience than me and you're watching just for entertainment, you may have noticed, yeah, dude, you have a phase issue. You may have already seen that from the beginning, and that's good, but I haven't noticed it yet, so it's embarrassing. But I want to make sure I'm flipping the phase on all the amp ones. Yep, and that's what we got. And let's listen to another section and see if it makes a difference. Just to my untrained ear, it sounds good. Okay. sounds more full. There's no cancellation. The waves cancel themselves out. Like it's a hard thing to imagine at first, but sound waves move like this. If they're moving in phase, if they're in phase together, they're moving in exactly the same frequency, traveling together. When they're out of phase, they're canceling. They're striking at in the same place, and your ears interpret that as no sound. Like they actually physically cancel each other out in the air, and your ears go, whoa, there's something up here. So even if they're not perfectly out of phase, if they're just slightly, and I'm trying to be all cool with my hands here and like, oh, so this would be slightly out of phase, but this would be perfectly out of phase, and then maybe slightly out of phase is like there's only a certain part of the frequency of the waveform that's out of phase with the rest of it, but then your ears hear that as like a weakening of the signal. So that's a basic introduction to phase. I hope that helps somebody out there, because in the beginning that was like really hard for me to understand. So we covered panning. I've got them now panned. Did I do my 60%? Let's see here. No, I did 100% in the mix just so you could hear it, and I want to set this back to 60. So again, here's 100%. Sounds all right. I'm going to draw it back to 60. Just hear how it changes the fullness of the guitar sound. See that? When I first pulled back the amp channel from being far right, it wasn't noticeable, but when I pulled back the second one, at least for me, when I pulled back the direct line, now it's noticeable. Okay? So I'm going to end it there for tonight. So we covered phase. And as I said in the beginning, I'll restate it. My attempt, what I'm trying to do as I move forward in the episodes now, is I want to get the instrument portion, everything except the vocals, kind of solidified, like set. So I like the sound of it and everything's good. And of course I can always go back and make little changes and tweaks. And a big thing is like once I start monitoring it on my speakers, because I've been using these the whole time, which is fine. People mix entire albums just on headphones. But I want to listen on my speakers. I have 2 sets of speakers here, to A and B, and I'll listen in my car, and that'll let me change the instrument mix even further. But what I'm trying to do is get the instrument portion of it solidified, set, so then I can begin messing with the vocals and having the vocals like sit on top of the mix just right. And that's been my method. I know some people mix vocals first. I've heard other producers say that. That's a scary thought to me. I mean, if they have a style and they know that this artist and this song and their method calls for this treatment of the vocals, and they build that first, and then they like surround the vocals with the track, that makes sense in their mind. To me, because we're a power trio, the instrument part of it has to like, the foundation of it has to sit right, and then the vocals will like sprinkle the vocals on the top. So again, to recap before I end here, we were going to cover automation. I'm going to change the title of it. I know I said that early on, but instead we investigated phase, and we talked about the stereo field, and we made some panning changes to the guitar so you could hear it in the mix. And so again, episode 10, thank you for watching. I appreciate you guys keeping up with me along going through these 10 episodes, and I plan to keep going. Honestly, my goal, if I can make it, is to finish mixing the song by episode 20, which I may run out of topics, but I think near the end I'm going to just start putting out final touch videos where it'll say episode 15, final touches, episode 16, more final touches. I may run out of mixed topics and functions of Reaper to focus in on, and I may just bounce around between all the things that we've kind of covered to try to narrow it down to exactly where I want it to be. So again, thank you for watching. Hit subscribe. I know I have to say that every video. Hit thumbs up on the video if you liked it, and please leave me a comment if you can give me any feedback, how to pull myself out of noob status and improve, both on mixing and on the tutorials. I'm open to all kinds of criticism, and I appreciate your viewership. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.